Hey, what's happening, YouTube? What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the Jussie Smollett story. Jussie Smollett, the character from the television show Empire, and I believe he's also trying to launch a music career, and that kind of plays into this whole story. You guys have probably heard this media story, this narrative about him being attacked walking home late at night in Chicago. Supposedly, he was attacked by two racists who put a noose around his neck, threw bleach on him, called him a gay slur and a ethnic slur or racial slur, and told him this is MAGA country, a Trump reference. And this story from the start has kind of smelled funny. It seemed a little bit fake. And as things go on, it's only gotten weirder and weirder. The details of the story don't make any sense. Just nothing about this story makes sense. But then when the police go to investigate, he turns in phone records that are heavily redacted. Some of his friends were promoting their music and his music following this supposed hate crime, telling everybody, let's get 50 million downloads on his song. And then his friend's song actually had an African-American figure in a noose in the video. The whole thing smells really funny. So kind of how the story goes, he's walking home from either a club or a gay bar sometime, I think, between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. Had just gotten himself a Subway sandwich, had his phone in his hand, and supposedly two racists come up and say, hey, you're that guy from Empire, right? That TV show Empire. And he's like, well, me? Now, first of all, this in itself doesn't dispute this, but just to point it out, Empire is kind of a show with mainly black characters. So do you think that two racists are watching a show called Empire with mainly black characters and watch it and know the show well enough to recognize him? That seems kind of weird, but that's like the least of the weird things about this. Let's also keep in mind that these two racists were supposedly carrying around a noose and bleach. Who carries around a noose and bleach? The idea that they were specifically targeting him for attack is crazy. Were they trying to attack African Americans in general and they had a noose and bleach on him? Oh, okay, maybe that's possible, but that they would be targeting him, absolutely not. Let's also add that I believe that night it was like 9 degrees or -9 degrees, and bleach freezes at a lower temperature than water. Water freezes at, 32 degrees? Bleach freezes at 18 degrees. So another thing, and I know it depends on how long these people were walking around, but theoretically, bleach would freeze at a temperature of 18 degrees, which is higher than the temperature that it was out. Why was he walking home in this cold weather so late at night? I don't know. Why were these supposed racists walking around at this time, freezing at this hour of the night? Don't know. If you haven't seen the pictures of after he was attacked, he has one little scratch under his eye. Little Bow Wow got in a fight with his girlfriend, or I shouldn't say got in a fight, I guess he beat her up, but Little Bow Wow and his girlfriend got in an altercation. Little Bow Wow looked more beat up by a woman than Jussie Smollett, who supposedly got beat up by two grown men. Jussie Smollett also, kind of in talking and working with the police, identified two men from a surveillance video and said those are absolutely the two men who did this. Well, turns out those two men were black and they were Nigerian, and they were huge bodybuilders. Where the story gets even weirder is these bodybuilders had been featured on his show Empire before. They're kind of actors who've been in a lot of different shows, kind of as extras and kind of B-roll guys. But they've been on his TV show, so they have a direct connection to him. They've posted Instagram videos of them working out. I believe one of them was doing a hand walk on a treadmill that just happened to be in his building. I think they've shouted each other out on Instagram before. So the whole thing is just very strange. Like, could he have gotten beaten up by these two gentlemen who he knew? Well, I suppose that's possible, but then why say that it was two white guys, and why make up the racist and, homophobic stuff, and why come out with the whole MAGA country thing? After this all happened, he waited, he went back he didn't call the police right away. He went back to his apartment, and instead of calling the police, called his manager. which was about 45 minutes later. And then his manager called the police, or his manager told him to call the police. When the police made contact with him, he was still wearing a noose. And I've heard Joe Budden and a couple other guys say, like, any black man who had a noose put around him, the first thing they would do is take that off. You're not going to walk around for an hour and a half or 45 minutes or whatever it was with a noose around his neck. I think maybe his story is he was trying to preserve evidence or something like that. But, you know, Joe Budden said, you know, no one's going to leave a noose around their neck. So this whole story is just very, very odd, very, very funny. And I think people of all colors, races, creeds, everybody should be incredibly upset about this. You know, we're all human beings. We should all kind of get along and love each other and be good to each other. You know, the world is divided enough as it is, racially, religiously, politically. You know, homophobia exists. You know, the world is divided enough, and he's going to, you know, what it looks like is create a fake story that's going to even kind of further this divisiveness. Chicago is already a very racially segregated city. You're further going to divide the races in Chicago by doing something like this. Politically, you know, you're going to kind of turn Trump supporters against non-Trump supporters or African Americans or homosexuals or whatever else. And then, you know, the worst part of it is it's a horrible thing, but hate crimes really do happen. People are attacked for their race or their sexuality. That's a horrible thing. And by doing this, it kind of trivializes the real stories of racism and homophobia. The next time somebody is a true victim of a hate crime or of a homophobic crime, people are potentially going to doubt it a little bit more or be slower to believe it. And that's horrible that somebody who actually would have been a victim of something like this doesn't have their story believed, all because if Jussie Smollett did this, you know, this piece of human garbage wants to make up stories and kind of trivialize these real and very horrible issues that people go through. So the whole story's starting to seem pretty funny. I'm gonna go ahead and link down in the description box to two interesting videos I've seen on the subject. The one is Joe Budden on either his podcast or somebody else's podcast talking about this. And the other is another gentleman, I can't think of his name, but another popular YouTuber who did a really good video kind of breaking this down. He kind of had a great thing in there. He said, you know, I'm going to reserve judgment. Anything is possible. And, you know, I'll say the same thing. You know, you see some of the goofy news stories and some of the crazy things that happen in the world, and it's like, shit, anything is possible. Even things that seem so unrealistic, things that make no sense, people's behaviors that make no sense, they act in a way that no normal person ever would. Sometimes these things do turn out to be true. However, you know, he kind of gave an example. He said, if your wife came home and found you in bed with another woman and you told her, honey, you know what, I hired a maid because you said I'm always leaving my socks all over the place and messing up the house. And, you know, the maid was cleaning the house and making the bed, and her earring fell off in the bed. And so I jumped in here to try to help her find the earring. Like, is that possibly? Well, yeah, it's probably possible. Is that probable or likely? Probably not. So, you know, I thought his video was really funny. I thought he kind of had some good analogies and things in there. So I'll link to some other good videos on this topic in the description box below. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this. You know, also, if there's anything I left out of the story or anything I mischaracterized, feel free to go ahead and correct that down in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.